What's up, guys? Welcome to the Second Take. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jim.
And we are here for Christmas, Hanukkah, the holiday that we think should be a holiday, but nobody's made it a holiday yet, and that's week 1 of the NFL season. It kicks off tonight with the Panthers and the Broncos, and I'm going to let Jonah talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's finally arrived. We've been waiting for a really long time. It's the first week of the NFL while we've had this podcast, so we're pretty excited to talk about this pretty much the whole time. We're starting the season with a Super Bowl rematch, which is pretty interesting, between the Panthers and the Broncos in Denver. Obviously, these teams, especially the Broncos, are going to look a little bit different than they did in the Super Bowl. Without Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler, we're going to see the NFL starting debut of Trevor Siemian against the Panthers. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not that optimistic about it from the Broncos' point of view, but it should be a great game nonetheless. It could be the worst game of all time, and I'd be happy to watch it because football's back. But, yeah, I think so what we're going to do this year, just like to introduce what we're doing here, is every week we're going to have like 4 big games that Zach and I each pick the winner of. And then we're going to pick a lock win outside those 4 games, and we're going to pick an upset, which is someone that's an underdog by more than a field goal. So this Panthers-Broncos game is one of the big games this week. Obviously, it's a Super Bowl rematch. I'm going with the Panthers in this game, even though they're on the road. It's not that I think the Panthers are as dominant as last year, but I think even though Trevor Siemian can probably be okay as a quarterback, it's going to take some time to work through the jitters, especially with the front 7 that the Panthers have in his face the whole game. I don't think this is going to be a super pretty debut for Trevor Siemian, and I think the Panthers will take this one.
Yeah, and just to also add to what we're doing, so in terms of points for this, Jonah and I are going to have like a little side bet kind of thing going on where like the loser has to buy lunch or something at the end of the year. But we're going to do 2 points for an upset and then 1 point for the rest of the games. And if you lose your pick, that's your lock, then you're going to lose 1 point. And then we're also going to do like a survivor pool just because we know a lot of people play survivor. So we'll give you a survivor pick also. But yeah, for the Panthers-Broncos game, I think the Broncos defensively have gotten a little bit worse just because if you lose Malik Jackson and Danny Trevathan, you're obviously going to get worse. And they're obviously trying to shop Aqib Talib right now. So it seems like something's going on. And I think the Panthers are about the same on defense and a lot better on offense since Kelvin Benjamin's going back. And the Broncos don't have Peyton Manning anymore, even though he wasn't great last year. He's still Peyton Manning. All of which I think points to a Panthers win. And they are 3-point favorites right now, which I think is a little bit low in my opinion. But I think the Panthers will win this game pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. I would take the Panthers even against the spread this week.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, I don't know. I think they're better than they were last year, and they're 15-1. I don't expect them to be that again, but they're gonna have a lot of wins.
Yeah, I agree.
So next we'll get into the Sunday night game, Patriots against Cardinals. Obviously no Tom Brady, so the Patriots take a little bit of a hit there, and the Cardinals are still just as good as they always have been. Maybe even a little bit better with Chandler Jones and a healthy Tyrann Mathieu. But I don't really think the Patriots have a shot in this game, which I don't think is something I've ever said in my life, just because Tom Brady and Bill Belichick is the scariest duo ever. But I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one, and to be honest, I think I might even take them if Tom Brady was playing.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals in this game, similar to why you did. I mean, I think that the Cardinals might be the better team even if Brady was playing, and people seem to have high hopes for Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it's possible he'll be good. It's kind of the same with some other quarterbacks like Trevor Siemian. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. Man, this is a tough road game for the Patriots without their star quarterback. The Cardinals are a very solid team all around. I don't think the Cardinals will be quite as good as they were last year just because I don't think Carson Palmer will be as good, but I think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a home game for a great team. Like you said, they added Chandler Jones. He's going to have something to prove against his old team that got rid of him. So, yeah, I have the Cardinals in this one as well.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting game, though.
Yeah, I mean, talking about this is just giving me chills waiting to hear Jim Nantz kick off with as soon as the kickoff happens, the Panthers-Broncos, and the 2016-17 football season's underway. I just can't stop thinking about it, but we'll move on to Steelers-Redskins. Being in the D.C. area, I guess I have to kind of take an affinity to this game, even though I don't want to. But I think this will be a pretty good game. But I think that the Steelers, being as high-powered an offense as they are, and the Redskins being a little bit shaky on defense, I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I'm actually really up in the air with this one. I think it'll be a really close, high-scoring game, but I think that Big Ben with Antonio Brown is just a little bit too much, and I cannot wait to see him shut Josh Norman's mouth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think this is an interesting game also because I think the Steelers, they're a good team, obviously, but they have some holes on defense. We covered that in our preview, obviously. But I think that the Redskins are going to be able to exploit some of those. I think, obviously, neither of us have great love for Deshaun Jackson, but I think he should have a big game against the defensive backfield that the Steelers have, even if Antonio Brown has a better one. This is the first of 2 Monday night games this week, which, in my opinion, is the thing they should do every week. I mean, I think just having like the 7 o'clock and the 10 o'clock game back to back is like awesome. It's like a whole extra day of football, especially for people who are up late all the time, like I am.
Right.
Like I have no problem watching the end of the 10 o'clock game. Yeah, just in terms of the Steelers-Redskins game, I think that it's a little closer than people might think it is, just because I think the Redskins have a lot of advantages over the Steelers here, but I just don't trust Kirk Cousins a lot. I think, obviously Ben Roethlisberger is going to miss his few games, but he should be healthy at the start of the season, and the Steelers with a healthy Roethlisberger are tough to beat, so I'm going to pick the Steelers in this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, and Josh Norman has kind of been talking, like, what else is new? He doesn't talk well, but he talks. And I think Antonio Brown's going to come into this game just being a little extra hyped because Josh Norman seems to think he can guard anyone who steps on a football field. And just for some background, I really hate the Steelers. I don't know why. Kind of just because Big Ben and Eli always have, even though they don't technically have a rivalry, in my mind they do just because they're in the same draft class and they always compete to win Super Bowl rings and stuff like that. So I really don't like the Steelers, and I have no problem putting Antonio Brown jersey on for this game. So, yeah, I got the Steelers in that one. And last but not least, we move on to the biggest game of the weekend for your 2 podcast hosts. That would be the Giants and the Cowboys.
Yeah, so this is what we've both been looking forward to all year. We've been talking extensively about the Giants and Cowboys, both on and off the podcast, for the last few months. So this is the long-awaited clash. Obviously, there's not going to be any Tony Romo in this game. The Cowboys are going to be starting Dak Prescott, their rookie quarterback. We talked about this last week. We recorded that right after Romo got hurt. I was still a little bit emotionally devastated from that. I think Prescott will do fine. I don't know exactly how ready he's going to be yet. I'm sort of reserving judgment on the Cowboys as a whole until I just see this one game, because it's impossible to evaluate Prescott without having seen him in a real game. Like, he was good in the preseason, but, that's not the same thing. And so, this is a hard game for me to pick just because, the most important position on the Cowboys is just total unknown for me. I think the running game is going to be solid. I think the Giants are going to have a hard time stopping it. And I think if the Cowboys can get an early lead, I think they have a good chance to win this game, especially at home. So I'm going to sort of throw caution to the wind with how this defense looks and pick the Cowboys in this game just because I'm a loyal fan. I have to do it. I do have my doubts about significant parts of this team, obviously, which I've made clear, but I got to pick the Cowboys in this game.
Yeah, so Jonah just did what every good fan does and picks his own team even if he has zero confidence whatsoever that they can win the game. I'm fairly confident. I would pick the Giants. I would pick the Giants 17 times, 16 times in a season. And I know Jonah would do the same thing for the Cowboys, so he kind of has to do that. It's like it's kind of written in stone as a fan. I am a little nervous about this game. I do think the Giants are the better team week one. On paper, the Giants should win the game. I think Jonah thinks the same thing. The problem that
should, but they will though.
Right, that's how sports works, unfortunately. But Dak Prescott's a mobile quarterback, and I think that the way for him to best play in this game would be to use his legs early on to kind of get into the rhythm and the flow of the game, and then obviously that would break down the defense, and then he could start trying to pick them apart. I don't know how easy that's going to be for him, but the Giants have always struggled against that kind of stuff, so I could see him running all over the Giants. I am going to pick the Giants, though. The Giants have played Dallas 5-6 years in a row in the home opener in Dallas, and they've lost like every single time. I think we're 0-8 in the last 8 times we played at Dallas. Ever since Eli won the first game in your new stadium, he signed the wall, and I think we've lost every single game. But yeah,
series like every season.
Yeah, exactly. The away team wins these. I mean, the home team wins these games most of the time. So, we'll take the Giants, I guess. So you want to go to our locks now?
Yeah, sure.
Who you got?
So for mine, I'm taking the Seahawks. They are not coincidentally the largest point favorite this week. They're a 10.5 point favorite at home against the Dolphins. Dolphins are a team that I really don't like a lot. I have my doubts about parts of the Seahawks team, but I have a really hard time seeing them losing at home to the Dolphins, who have to make a complete cross-country trip week one. I don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to have a lot of fun in Seattle with that crowd. So yeah, I feel pretty comfortable picking the Seahawks as my lock.
Yeah, originally I told Jonah I was going to pick the Bengals, and while I still think the Bengals will beat the Jets, I'm going to switch it up and go Chiefs over the Chargers. And this is kind of interesting because Jonah was thinking about picking the Chargers as his upset, but didn't. The Chiefs are favored by 6.5. I just think that they're too much for the Chargers. I know it's a division game, which is kind of scary to pick, and Jamal Charles probably isn't going to play. But it is in Kansas City, which makes me feel a lot better because the Chiefs are really good at home, and I think that they can still run the ball with Spencer Ware, and the Chargers are pretty bad up front defensively, so I think that they'll have a pretty easy time with the Chargers, and hopefully will not make me look like a fool week one. So we're going to go to the upsets now. Jonah had a tough time with this one because he's got some favorite teams that are playing each other, so I'll go first. I have the Browns. Yes, you heard that right. You don't need to rewind. I said the Browns.
The Browns road.
The Browns are playing the Philadelphia Eagles. As Jonah just said, it is on the road at the Link in Philly. I don't really know why I'm picking this. Probably just because it's the only upset that really intrigued me. In terms of point spreads, we are not picking an upset unless it's more than a field goal spread. So this game's 3.5. There's not really many this week that are more than a field goal that are even like slightly winnable. So I'm going to go with the Browns here. I think RG3 can get it going with Corey Coleman and his receivers, and we'll see what happens. As Jonah and I talked about the Eagles last week, saying that Eric Rowe was somebody we were afraid of in the secondary, and they must have been listening because the Patriots traded for him, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not a bad pick. Also because Carson Wentz is going to be the starter in that game, and it's his first NFL game, so you can expect there to be some problems there, even against the Browns. So I don't mind that pick. My upset pick is going to be I'm picking the Bears on the road at Houston. They are 6-point underdogs according to the site that I'm on. I would certainly take the Bears against the spread in this game because I think that spread is way too high for Houston. Because I mean, I have Houston winning the division, but And to me, it's primarily because that division's pretty weak. I don't think the Texans are that good of a team. And I think the Bears are not significantly worse than the Texans, if at all. I know I like the Bears more than you do. I do almost every year. But I think there's a lot of reason to think for sure that Jay Cutler is worse than Brock Osweiler. I mean, Osweiler seems like kind of a shaky quarterback in the same way that Cutler is. So to me, this game is pretty much a toss-up. And if I'm getting like 6 points for that, I'm going to take the Bears as my upset.
So just before we go on to our survivor pick, would you like to amend your wild card pick of the Vikings since they now have Mark Sanchez and no Teddy Bridgewater?
What do you mean?
I mean, not Mark Sanchez. Sorry, since they have Sam Bradford, would you like to change the fact that they're going to go to the playoffs?
We know that Bradford is starting.
No, but
was Sean Hill ahead of him on their depth chart?
Yeah, but that was because he's only been in the system for like 2 days and hasn't learned the playbook or anything.
Well, good. That makes me really confident about his success on the Vikings.
Well, they said that he's
much better now.
They said he's learning quickly and that there's a good chance to be the week 1 starter.
I bet they said that.
I'm giving you the chance to change your pick. Do you want it or not?
I do want to change my pick.
Okay, who do you want?
Because I think Sam Bradford is like the worst quarterback in the league.
Can you please not pick the Bears for this wild card spot?
I'm not going to pick the Bears. I want to, but I won't. I'm going to go with the Redskins as my second wild card.
Oh, that hurts so deep down inside.
I don't like the Redskins a lot, but I just can't in good conscience pick a team with Sam Bradford as the quarterback in the playoffs, especially if he's been on the team for a week and doesn't know their system. So, I like the Vikings defense a lot. I like a lot of the people on the offense. I can't do it with Sam Bradford. I just can't. It goes against everything I believe.
Which is the Mets, the Cowboys. Should I continue? The Knicks. I'm not going to change my pick just because, I don't know, I think he's slightly comparable to Teddy Bridgewater, and I know Jonah's about ready to jump through the phone. So I'm just going to keep talking, but I like that he can kind of move it around a little bit to Stephon Diggs and Laquan Treadwell, and they still have Adrian Peterson and a top 5 defense, so I'm not jumping off the bandwagon yet. The Redskins would be the team I would throw in there, though, if I took the Vikings off the board, just because I think they have a lot of weapons offensively, but the lack of their running game still scares me. So those are our picks for that, and now we'll just do a quick survivor pick. I think we're both going to take the Seahawks here. I don't really see why you wouldn't. They're a 10-point favorite. They're at home, and they're playing a team that Jonah and I think is pretty weak in the Dolphins. So I think there's a lot to like here with the Seahawks.
Yep, I agree.
So that'll do it for the NFL for week 1. We will be doing this every single week, so we're probably going to be doing the podcast on Thursdays at this time now, just because that way we can get the Thursday game in there and talk a little bit about college and a little bit about the NFL picks. So with that being said, we're going to take a little halftime break from the NFL, and we're going to discuss something near and dear to Jonah's heart, and that would be the signing by the New York Mets of Tim Tebow. And take it away.
Yeah, so I saw this story. Like, I wake up in the morning, right? I'm gonna narrate this for you. I wake up in the morning. I look over at my phone. First thing I do every morning, I see a text from my dad. Mets signed Tebow! Exclamation point. And I was like, no way. He's got to be kidding me. But I go onto Twitter. I'm checking the stuff I check, and sure enough, Adam Schefter's Twitter account says that the Mets have signed Tim Tebow, which I'm glad that Adam Schefter broke that news, even though it's baseball news.
Yeah.
That just shows me how incredible Adam Schefter is. It seems like a bad dream almost. I thought Tim Tebow was out of my life forever, and he probably still is, because I think there's a virtually 0% chance he ever puts on a New York Mets uniform in the major leagues. Just because, it's not that easy to go play baseball. It's easier the other way around, I think. Apparently, there were differing opinions from the scouts at his tryout. Some said, he was way better than they expected, and some said like he looks like a football player trying to play baseball. I guess the Mets were one of the teams on the more optimistic side of that.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's going to happen is they're going to send him to the Arizona Fall League or to their instructional league in Florida or something, and they're going to see if he can really play baseball. So it's very low risk. So like and they're not paying him a lot of money, so it's not a huge deal. It seems to me just like an unnecessary distraction for a team that's in the thick of a playoff race right now. I mean, right now they're tied with St. Louis for the second wild card. Half came back to San Francisco for the first wild card. Like, this is a very close playoff race right now. Two of those three teams are going to get a wild card, and the Mets like shouldn't be bringing distractions in at this point. I don't think, because like the possible reward for signing Tim Tebow is so low that like you want to evaluate the downsides of doing that before you make a move like that, because the upside is so low. So I wouldn't have personally done it, to put it lightly, if I was running the Mets. I don't think it's a huge deal outside of like chemistry type stuff. I've never been someone who liked Tim Tebow at all, just personally or as a football player. I think, but you know, we'll see. I don't expect to see him playing at Citi Field ever, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think that the move I don't think it can have any impact on the team in the baseball sense, because I don't think he'll ever play like in a Mets uniform. But like you said, the distraction part of it, I think it's extremely stupid to do it now. I think it would be stupid to really do it at any time, just because I don't know, I don't really see the point. And if so many people, like the one takeaway I had from his tryout thing, I've read some scout said he looked like an actor trying to play a baseball player in a movie. If that's the case, that's really terrifying, because like, I don't know, I think of like High School Musical with Zac Efron trying to play a basketball player and just see how terrible he looks at basketball. Like, that's what
yeah, it's exactly like that, you're right.
That's just what came to mind. So like, if I was a Mets fan, I would never want to think of that in my uniform. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem in terms of his skill, because he's not going to make the Major League roster, which opens up a spot on the Cowboys depth chart at quarterback for him in about a year or so.
I was saying earlier that like I was sure one of my favorite teams was going to sign Tim Tebow. I just thought it'd be the Cowboys.
Jonah lives a terrible life in sports, because everything he doesn't want to happen, sometimes it'll just find a way to happen.
I can't wait till the Knicks sign Zac Efron now. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, he's, like we said, he's not going to hurt the team other than distract. I think it would be more of a distraction for the front office than it would be for the players. I can't really see the players getting too bothered by this.
They're not going to ever meet Tebow, because he's never going to be in New York with the team. So
right, and if there's a question in a press conference like, what do you think about Tim Tebow? I mean, it's one answer and you're done. It's not like, oh yeah, we can't wait to have him on the big league roster. It's on and so forth. It's like, all right, we got to win some games here. Nobody cares.
Right, like Curtis Granderson isn't going to have to like be worried about losing his roster spot.
Yes, because we've all seen the canon of Tim Tebow.
Right, it's going to be like a thing that's surrounding the team. It's going to be like, oh, this is Tim Tebow's team now. Like, I'm rooting for Tim Tebow's baseball team.
Granted, as bad of an arm as Tim Tebow has, he might be able to beat out Granderson, because he has a pretty terrible arm too, but I don't think it'll happen in terms of hitting, at least.
Has similarly weird throwing motion.
Yes.
But like, we'll see how well Granderson can throw a football, maybe.
But yeah, anyways, it's a weird story that I don't think anybody was really expecting. I didn't think he was going to get signed even to a minor league roster by anyone. I saw that the Braves had a lot of interest, which, okay, it's the Braves are the worst team in baseball, like, cool.
Right.
But for the Mets to do it was definitely a shock. But yeah. And you got anything else you want to say about Tebow?
That's enough about Tebow, I think.
All right, so before we get into college football, just one more story that broke yesterday. Tiger Woods is coming back to play some golf this year. He's going to play in 3 tournaments, so not only is it a holiday for the NFL, but Tiger Woods also decides to come back in the same week. So let's see if he has any inclination of a golf swing, any ability to play golf whatsoever.
Yeah, speaking of washed up former stars.
He's a little bit more of a star than Tebow, and I think he's still more of a star, even how washed up he is. But we'll talk a little bit about that in a few weeks when he actually gets closer to playing, which is like mid-October. But just good news that Tiger's back. Golf is always better when Tiger's around, for the most part. But then we will get into college football. We had a kind of a crazy week. 2 top 5 teams went down. Pretty bad league, too. Some notable teams played really well, and an old I don't know what you want to call it, an old stalwart of the top 10 played really well, and they haven't been ranked in years. So we'll start with them. Notre Dame, Texas went into overtime. I don't even think it should have been an overtime game. Texas outplayed them pretty terribly in the first half.
Yeah, that was the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, tell me another game that could be your team is up by 2, you go to kick an extra point to make it a 3-point lead, and it gets blocked and returned, and it's a tie game now.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anything that could have happened in that game happened. So, for that reason, it's pretty entertaining to watch. There was some good play for both teams, but like people were justifiably very impressed with Texas, who like. Obviously, Texas has had a bit of a fall lately. They were like always one of the top 10 teams in the country, and they haven't been ranked in like 3 or 4 years. They're back up in the rankings this year, shot all the way up from unranked to 11th, which I think was a little bit of an overcorrection there.
Oh yeah.
But nonetheless, they were very impressive this weekend. They got great play from 2 different quarterbacks. They had Tyrone Swoops, who basically only came in to run the ball, but was excellent at it. He was as good as you could have possibly asked, just standing guys up on the Notre Dame defense, getting big first downs when they needed him to. And then when they needed to throw the ball, they brought in true freshman Shane Buechele, who was as good as anybody could ask for a true freshman starting his first game at Texas. Like, the biggest job in college football is like the Texas starting quarterback. And he stepped into that like he was a veteran. Very impressed with him. He put the ball right where it needed to go every time. So yeah, I was very impressed with the way Texas played and the way they handled that pressure with such a young team.
Yeah, and for Notre Dame, Deshaun Kaiser looked like a superstar in the second half. He didn't get the start. Zaire got the start and looked pretty bad to start.
Yeah, that quarterback controversy's over now. Kaiser's the starter.
And see, going into the season, I could have sworn that Zaire was a better player. But I don't know. I don't know if the injury changed him a couple years ago or what happened, but Deshaun Kaiser is the best player on that football team, and there's no questions asked. He was throwing passes that I don't think some NFL quarterbacks could make, but he's very good. The team is not as good as they usually are, but they're still good enough to compete. I think they'll win, 9 games, just their independent schedule. Sometimes they get some weak opponents, but they'll be fine. But yeah, like Jonah said, Texas was extremely impressive. I didn't think there was any way that they were going to win that football game, and they really dominated it for the first half and looked like this far superior team. And then even when Deshaun Kaiser came in and played really well, they still held their own. So they pulled out the victory in the end in overtime thanks to swoops and a nasty touchdown run. But yeah, they shouldn't be the 11th ranked team in the country either.
No, yeah, I think they'll win 8 or 9 games, and it'll be seen as a big improvement, because it will be, and they'll be back up there before long, I think.
Right, which will be great for football.
Absolutely.
So who you want to talk about next? Want to stay in the Big 12 and do Houston, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think might as well go to another Big 12 game here. Possibly soon this will be a Big 12 matchup we'll see every year.
Right.
With Houston applying to the Big 12, and they definitely strengthened their case for getting into the Big 12 this week, I think, with a pretty emphatic win over Oklahoma. They were the better team for the entire game. They looked better the whole time. Greg Ward made some great throws. He looked better than Baker Mayfield, who was considered a top Heisman candidate. I don't think Oklahoma has a ton to be ashamed of in this game. They were obviously outplayed, but I think they just weren't the better team. I think the rankings are sort of corrected now. I just think they were never as good as they were ranked, and I think that Houston was probably better. I mean, people do have a tendency to doubt teams that aren't in the Power 5, which is probably justified. You have to see them play somebody, but Houston obviously proved how good they were with this game, and I think there's a pretty good chance, especially after this game, that we see them in the Big 12 in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think whoever set the line on this game, it was, I don't know if they didn't know anything about football or what, but Houston at kickoff was a 12-point underdog, but a few hours before kickoff, they were up to as high as 16.5 points.
Yeah, that's crazy. It was a home game for Houston. It was in the Texans Stadium.
Exactly, and honestly, it was, let's see, I think it was 33-17, and it was first and goal at the 1-yard line for Houston, and they fumbled, and then they gave up a touchdown. So realistically, that game probably would have ended 40-17. Like, that's a blowout. So to be a 16-point underdog at one point and win the game by 20 plus against a top 5 team, I mean, I don't know, something's messed up there. But Houston, I was very confident with this Houston team going into the game, and they kind of reassured me after the game. Tom Herman, is that his first name?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. They are now 5-0 under him as a head coach as an underdog. That says a lot to me. how good of a motivator he is, and just how talented that team is, and how much of a chip they have on their shoulder at all times. Even though they blew out Florida State in a bowl game last year and came into the season with a lot of confidence, returning a lot of starters, they still acted like they didn't belong. Like people thought they didn't belong, even though they knew they definitely belong there. I really like the way they play. I think that Greg Ward is a good quarterback. They got a solid defense. Oklahoma, though, I'm a little higher on than Jonah. I love their running backs, and I think Baker Mayfield's a superstar. I just don't think that they were expecting the punch that they got from Houston. But I don't think that Oklahoma will lose more than two games this year. They'll probably lose one more. Oklahoma State or Baylor, I think, will beat them. But I don't think that they will lose to too many teams this year. But yeah, this was just another great game. Fun to watch, even though it wasn't necessarily close the whole time. Just another good game of opening weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston's definitely playing with a chip on their shoulder, and that's a great way to play college football.
Oh, yeah.
And you always see those teams as something to prove. I mean, this is we always see from Boise State. Like, they always play like they have something to prove.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Houston won their big bowl game last year. Like, they were nothing to joke about last year either, and they're better this year. So,
yeah, and they're on the inside track to the college football playoff, I think. If they can win out, I think they deserve it.
Yeah, if they win out, it would be crazy to not have them in the playoff.
And it really shouldn't be. I mean, it's always football. It's hard to win every game. I completely understand that, but they are going to be the favorite, I think, in every single game they play from here on out. So technically, they should win out, and therefore they should be in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
So let's go over to the SEC, who had big problems this weekend. I think they ended up 7-7, which is one of the worst records of any conference on opening weekend. It all started with their second highest ranked team, and LSU, who I don't ever like, just because they don't ever have a good quarterback. Like, honestly, since Jamarcus Russell, they always have great running backs and a really solid defense. But if you're only going to score 13 points, you're not going to win a lot of games, or 14 points. Wisconsin didn't necessarily look great to me either. Their defense came into play, though, and punched Fournette in the mouth a few times, even though he got his fair share of yards, no questions about it. But yeah, this was another game. Wisconsin was a huge underdog. It was played in Lambeau Stadium. Like, I mean, I don't really understand how you can be that far away from home like LSU was and be a double-digit favorite. But
right. Yeah, these neutral site games, these sites are not neutral.
Yes, not even slightly.
Right.
Like, what was
that was a Wisconsin home game.
And Georgia, North Carolina was neutral site, except it was played in Atlanta.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's not neutral site. The Houston OU game was literally played in Houston. It's not neutral site.
Exactly. It should have to be if not outside state lines, it should at least have to be outside city lines.
Right, exactly. Like can we at least make that a rule? I don't know.
NCAA, just at them on Twitter or something with another rule change.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really like LSU. I always think they're ranked too high. They just don't have a good offense ever. I don't know what it is. They produce fantastic defensive backs, and honestly, the Giants get their receivers like once every couple of years. Thanks, Odell. And I think they got good receivers again. I love Malachi Dupree, but I just don't think they can ever score points, and it makes it really hard. Like they scored 14 points against Wisconsin, and I think like a minute span they was like a turnover and something else. So their offense didn't really do anything against a defense that's not necessarily known as one of the better defenses.
Right.
You want to say anything about that game, or you want to move on?
No, yeah. I mean, I think like Fournette was kind of held down pretty well in the first half, but like he still broke off some runs. Like Fournette is just so good. Like even in games where he doesn't have his best game, he'll show a flash or he'll just have one run and think like, oh my god, that is an NFL running back right there. So like Fournette's still awesome. That doesn't take away from him at all. It's just like this LSU team we see time and time again. Like you said, it's just done in by the quarterback play. I mean, Brandon Harris was terrible in this game.
And he always is. Every time they have a big game, he's just not there.
I know, and we've been seeing the same thing from Florida, I think, where they've just had really bad quarterback play that's undermined like a pretty good rest of the team. And I think I don't know, the SEC is kind of weak on quarterbacks this year, and I think we saw that kind of manifested in how poorly the SEC did in this first week. I mean, Mississippi State lost to South Alabama because their quarterback play was really bad. They switched quarterbacks in the middle of the game. And obviously Mississippi State was never going to be as good as last year, but like you're supposed to be South Alabama. So, and like Tennessee almost lost to Appalachian State. There was a lot of pretty bad SEC play this week, and it's possible that at least for this 1 year they might not be the best conference in the country for once.
Right. For Fournette, I mean, he's definitely an NFL running back. You can see that by just his size and physicality and how many people he runs over.
He's so big, fast. Like he's the best college running back I've seen since I think Adrian Peterson.
You think so?
Yeah, I think I'd go that far.
In terms of pure running back ability, I guess I would say that he is. But like even this year, there's a few running backs I'd pick ahead of him to be on my team.
You pick who?
I'd probably pick McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook.
Right, that's true. Yeah, I mean he's a different kind of running back, I guess.
Right, but like just to put on my team, I'd have those two players just because one, they can catch the ball out of the backfield, they're more athletic, and just a bigger playmaker than Fournette. And like you see with LSU, when they don't have good quarterback play, there's 8, 9, sometimes even 10 guys in the box, and I don't care how good you are, you're not going to be able to run through that every single play.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you think with just how much they stack the box against Fournette, like, you think that Brandon Harris could do something with like single coverage on all his receivers?
Yeah, dude, it's man-to-man coverage with no safety help over the top, and he still can't complete a pass.
They stack the box on every play because they know that Brandon Harris can't complete a pass in single coverage.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But to continue with the SEC, Ole Miss and Florida State also played. Ole Miss was beating them pretty handedly in the first half. Chad Kelly looked like a superstar, and then Chad Kelly looked like a bench warmer in the second half, which led Florida State to the victory. I shouldn't even say it that way because Florida State absolutely won that game. Their freshman quarterback played like a superstar, throwing for like 400 and something yards in his first game ever in college, and leading the biggest comeback in Florida State history, with famous Jameis there in the locker room and the sidelines, looking like he was a head coach. But yeah, Florida State looks like they're going to be pretty good. Dalvin Cook didn't even have his best game, but when he does, and the quarterback play that they got, I mean, they're going to be a scary team, I think.
just to go to Ole Miss for a second, I mean, I think Chad Kelly is probably somewhere in between how he played in the first and second half. I think he's closer to how he played in the first half. I do like Chad Kelly a lot. I think he's the best quarterback Ole Miss has had since your boy Eli Manning.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think I just think Florida State was just the better team. I don't think that's to take a lot away from Ole Miss. I think they're a pretty solid team. I think they were playing a bit over their heads in the first half, and it was just taking some time for Florida State to get adjusted, understandably, with a true freshman quarterback playing his first game. But DeAndre Francois was amazing. I mean, there's been a lot of good Florida State quarterbacks recently. Like, they've sneakily had, they sent Christian Ponder, EJ Manuel, and Jameis Winston all to the NFL in the span of, 6 or 7 years, which, obviously not all of them have been phenomenal in the NFL, but they were all phenomenal college quarterbacks. And I don't think Florida State really gets enough credit for just churning out great quarterbacks every year, but they certainly deserve that. And it looks like they found another one with Francois. I mean, he was great down the stretch. Dalvin Cook was his usual solid self. I mean, I don't think you can count Florida State out of any national title discussion.
Yeah, it's the only problem that they obviously are going to face is they got to play Clemson, and one of those two teams is going to lose that game and probably, I think, maybe unrightfully so, get knocked out of the college football playoff. But that comes.
That game is going to be so good.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of that has to do with the lack of competition in the ACC this year more than ever, I think. I honestly think the only two teams that are even slightly good are Clemson and Florida State, and they're both really good.
Yeah, North Carolina was the only other possibility, and they did not look very good.
Yeah, tell me about it. Your quarterback's worse than Tim Tebow.
Yeah, so the guy who bet on UNC.
But yeah, so the SEC looked pretty bad, but there was a shining star, and yes, it's the same shining star as every single year. Alabama, they're the best team in the country. They look like the best team in the country. They played like the best team in the country. They made USC look like they're an FCS school, and USC honestly isn't a joke, but USC is not a top 10 team in the country, I don't think, by any stretch, but they're also not out of the top 25 in my opinion in terms of talent and skill, and they were absolutely blown out of the water by Alabama and another freshman quarterback who is going to be a superstar and already looks like a superstar. And it's just unbelievable to see how good this team is year in and year out. They switch players all around the field. They lose 10 guys to the draft every single year, and they're still just as good, if not better, the following year. And it's just such a testament to Nick Saban, and it's unbelievable how good this team is.
Yeah, Bama just keeps on doing it. I mean, every year is the year people say, oh, well, they lost a lot this year. Saban's going to have a hard time making a defense out of all these new parts, and who's the quarterback going to be because it's a new guy every year. It never matters. They're always just Alabama. They always find a way to put everything together. I think Lane Kiffin is probably the best coordinator who should never be allowed to be a head coach in football. Besides maybe Josh McDaniels, but I think they just find a way on both sides of the ball every single year because they always find a new running back to just bowl everybody over. They always find a quarterback who can competently manage every game and just not lose the game for them. And they always just find studs on defense. And judging from that game against UNC last week, this year is not going to be any different.
Yeah, and I think this year is the first year I can remember that they actually found a quarterback that can go win them games rather than just manage them and not lose them. They've had good quarterbacks. They had, McElroy, McCarron, Blake Sims was good. I mean, they've had NFL quarterbacks on the roster that led them to national championships. It's just that those players had fantastic running backs, whether it's Mark Ingram or Trent Richardson or so on and so forth. And now they still do have a good running back. Can't think of his last name, but the quarterback is more skilled than I've seen on an Alabama sideline in a long time. And I think he's just going to throw the ball all over the place, which is going to cause serious problems for playing Alabama because you used to just be able to stack the box and hope and pray. Now if you do that, you're going to get torched, and if you don't do that, you're going to get torched. So that, along with a great defense, is cause for a serious concern for an already weak SEC.
Yeah, I mean, they scored 56 points against a USC team that, like, they're not great, but they're not bad.
Yeah, I mean, they have athletes all over the field. They actually know how to play football. They're all highly recruited players.
It looked like a high school team against Alabama.
It was sad. I mean, Alabama started out slow, and they did start a different quarterback that wasn't this freshman, in Barnett, and he didn't look good whatsoever. Like, there was a quick hook on him. But as soon as he came out of the game, Hurts, the freshman, he just dominated the game.
Yeah. It just never ends with these guys.
I know. If I was more invested in college football, like if I had a true college football team rather than just liking some teams here and there, I'd probably be miserable over the fact that Alabama's always the best every single year. Like Clemson right now, if I was a Clemson fan, you got the best quarterback in the NCAA. You got a really stud, good running back. You got a good defense. Like, you're supposed to be in the national championship game, and nobody even thinks you exist because Alabama's that good.
Right, exactly. Like if you're a Clemson fan, like, this should just be your year, and then you watch that Alabama game this week, and you think, well, guess it's just not going to happen.
Well, can Deshaun Watson come back for one more year?
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I think that, I mean, judging the college football landscape, I think there's a solid 5, maybe even 6 teams. I mean, we didn't even talk about Michigan or Ohio State, both of which looked fantastic. Granted, they didn't play anybody, but Ohio State put up 77 and Michigan put up 63. I don't care who the hell you play, that's still a lot of points, and that's still showing that you got some talent. Yeah, I mean, there's good teams. There's some really good teams, I think, this year. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And I also think there's some teams in the middle of the pack, or maybe even unranked, that are going to make some noise, just because there's so much talent spread around the country this year that there's places for some major shocks, and it's going to be a fun season to watch. And now we have every single weekend we'll have something to watch on. Thursday, something Friday, something Saturday, and something Sunday, and it's all going to be football, and Monday.
Yep, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great 2 months here.
So we will call it quits here at 1:53, which will give you, about 6.5 hours to get whatever you need to get ready for tonight and kick back, relax, and enjoy hopefully a good football game. Like Jonah said, if it's a blowout, we don't really care. It's still football. It's still something great to watch on TV. And we'll see how the defending champs look and how Cam and the boys look without their loudmouth Josh Norman on the sidelines. And I think it'll be a good one. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week for week 2 of the NFL and week 3 of college football.